Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Spark of Genius Flesh and Blood production. Another classic constructed deck tech for you guys, and I'm joined by my co-caster, co-compatriot, co-creator,
Companion.
co-commentator. Wow, that was
Something
a
like
weird.
that.
That was a weird order. That was a weird order for that one. I guess I'm a little bit tired. It is Monday. We were recording Gur Mondays or Ugg Mondays, however you wanna do it up. But
Channeling the inner Garfield here.
yeah, and that was on purpose because we're gonna be doing Katsu, but it's Katsu here. It's the roaring
I meant
tiger,
to do that, yeah.
crouching tiger. Garfield's kind of a tiger, and so we're
Got
gonna
the
be
right
going
colors,
with
yeah.
got the right colors here. So this is gonna be a roaring tiger build for CC that I've kind of I made an initial edit. So I made an initial list, and then I tried the different combo lines to essentially accentuate the roaring tiger line because we didn't get enough cards to flesh out the combo line. I'll talk a little bit about more about that in like the pros and cons for this deck. But just based on the list itself, unless you want to pour in a bunch of like random generic cards, the Crouching Tiger related combo lines there aren't that many great options, right? So
Right.
that being said, we will be going into the very similar to the Dash deck tech. It will be the weapons, a little bit about the play style, the core deck, hashtag core deck. I mean, it's a little bit different for Katsu compared to like Dash. Dash is very specific the way we did it, especially because like the build is like strategy based, whereas Katsu is going to have like your main core strategies, what Katsu is going to want to do, and that's going to be the prevalent thing you want to do in all your matchups, and then you'll have like kind of tech cards for different matchups regardless, and you're not changing your entire strategy, you're just changing some of the cards to help your own strategy that you're doing for every matchup. That being said, I will talk a little bit about the matchups. Not as much because I think the overall game plan doesn't really change that much. Is whether how effective it is depending on the meta and the hero. And I think I've rambled on a little bit enough, so we're going to be talking about Katsu, the Wanderer. Everyone forgot about Katsu because Fi is the big boy in town, right? So Fi had a very good showing at Worlds. I believe he had 2 top 8 appearances. I believe a semis and a quarters. I think there was at least 2 Fis in top 8. So Fi had a pretty good, Ninja in general had a pretty good showing. But Katsu is definitely considered a bit of a second-class citizen to Fi here, and that's mainly because of 2 factors. The explosiveness of Katsu is it's a lot more difficult to go with because combo line requires a specific order with your specific cards. It requires more resources to actually grab them. So whereas Katsu has the ability to like once you hit, you can discard to grab a combo piece. Essentially, you still need an extra card to go off. Whereas Fi seemingly just needs Art of War or Pouncing Link, so you can have a nutty turn, right? And you have the Phoenix Flame ability, which doesn't actually cost you anything. It's an ability that allows you to always get another card for card advantage from getting your grave to your hand, which is a very strong skill for going wide.
Fi also didn't rely on the on hits as much as Katsu does, and in that respect, you can play around Katsu pretty easily if you know what to block, right? For Fi, it wasn't as integral to stopping his turn because he can still go off regardless. But Katsu, to get the missing combo piece, you do have to hit most of the time. So it is a bit more challenging to play him, and the rewards just weren't quite there until Dynasty.
Question mark. So Rob brings a very, very key point in that Katsu is harder than Fi by like a pretty decent margin because your ordering of your attacks matters a lot, and the payoff just wasn't really there because Fi was still stronger. So that being said, Dynasty did give us a new combo line to play around with. Crouching Tiger line. So we're gonna start off with Katsu. His ability, for in case anyone's curious because they forgot because they haven't seen Katsu.
And also, new players are probably coming into the scene around Uprising / Dynasty, right?
Not really.
So it makes sense to reintroduce the guy.
Yep. So the first time an attack action you control hits each turn, you may discard a card with cost 0. So the cost 0 cards are a lot more of a premium in Katsu for this and for your Gadachis. And so if you do, you can search your deck for a card with a combo, banish it face up, shuffle your deck. You may play that card this turn. So that being said, he's always able to kind of grab combo pieces when you hit with any attack action. That being said, like go again attacks are still very good with Katsu being able to go decently wide. His average attack has probably a higher base damage than Fi, just because of when you have your Phoenix Flame turns, you need like Art of War and Shugo to be able to buff it. You get like a higher threshold. That being said, we are going to be runnings the Kodachis So these two harmonized Kadachis here, they're not that harmonized because they're both going the one way, but it doesn't really matter. Don't worry about
What a
that.
shame.
So you do need your blue zero costs are your best blue. Yellow zero costs work also, but a blue zero cost will allow you to Kadachi and give them both go again.
Mhm.
Kadachis are still like the ultimate lock weapon, right? Like at the end of the game, when two heroes are low life, harmonized Kadachis will win the day because you get to pitch a blue, and unless they have a way of like easily preventing something like an earth react from Oldhim or some kind
Crown
of
of
prevention that
Seeds.
allows you, yeah, like a crown of seeds, like crown of seeds. Really, Oldhim it does pretty good into this, but like,
Yeah.
um, you're able to most decks, you're able to really poke them and poke them and poke them, and a lot of your cards do block for 3. So in the late game, unlike Fi, you have a much easier time poking because Fi with Searing Ember Blade just gets to pitch and come in for 3. So they could just give you a card and come back, or they'll 0 for you. But it's much harder to block 2/2/1s here. So
Mhm.
that is the only weapon in this build. The only weapon you really use. There are like other weapons, but this is the only reasonable weapon. The two headpieces here are the first one is Mask of Momentum. The second one is the other mask, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So these are the two same masks that Fi will use. That being said, they come in for very different matches. It's the burst potential comes out of Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, and the draw for the longer games, the draw potential off Mask of Momentum allows you to pretty easily Kadachi and then threaten Mask if they didn't block the Kadachis. Mask of Momentum is interesting in that both in Fi and Katsu, there were like one attack things that helped you trigger that higher chain link. In Fi's case, it was an attack action, like a Phoenix Flame. That's even more annoying. That being said, that you could easily get to chain link 3 with the Kadachis. Why Mask Momentum is in there. It does also block for 2, just like Lynx. This deck does use Salt the Wounds, does have Art of War. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is still very reasonable. That's kind of the only thing you are grabbing with Mask is usually Assault the Wound.
Mhm.
The combo potential is a little bit more muted than Fi because in Fi you can also grab a Lava Burst if you want. So if they've been blocking you out a lot, you can still crack the Mask and push 6 damage if it's Shukoed, 5 damage if it's not.
Mhm.
That is Draconic, unfortunately. Katsu doesn't have that ability, and you can kind of already see the first parallel here that you don't have as many
Tools.
resources to actually
Yeah.
grab. Yeah, because Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is specifically for two or less base power, right? So it's really only Salt, and like not a lot of Katsu's cards themselves have two or less. So a little bit more limited here. So we do have the 2 masks. The chest pieces here, we do have Blossom of Spring and Final Spring Tunic. So Final Spring Tunic is mainly what you're going to be using in most of the matchups. Blossom of Spring is for different matchups if you want to try. If the game's going to be very, very short, Blossom of Spring allows you to, if you get a really good opening, like Roar of the Tiger hand, it does allow you to pop Blossom of Spring, play Art of War, and kind of go off earlier into those aggressive decks. That being said, it doesn't block, whereas Spring Tunic does block, and the game is going to be longer than like probably 3 turns, like
Yeah.
back and forth. Tunic is usually a pretty good option for that, whereas Blossom of Spring is really for like those 2 to 3 turns where you think it's very pivotal to grab tempo and keep tempo, and you don't think you're going to get at least 2. So the game has to go at least 6 turns, assuming you use the Tunic exactly when you get it, for you to get 2 pitch over the Blossom of Spring, just giving you 1, which is kind of nice, right? That's kind of the mentality you want to go in when you're choosing one or the other. Is the game going to go 6 turns? If it's an aggressive mirror, probably not. If nobody's blocking, probably not. So that's kind of where you want to be there. The boots here, we have Tide Flippers for the Arcane Barrier 1 option. Viscerai, any of the Arcane Barrier here, and any of the Arcane damage heroes. So Kano, Icelander, probably Briar also. And then Snapdragon Scaler is going to be your regular boots here. Just give go again to any of your cost 1 or less. You are running E-Strikes. You are running Snatch. You are running cards that are very, very good with Snapdragon that can provide additional go again to cards that already have an ability like draw a card in case of E-Strike and Snatch. So it kind of prevents them from like kind of disregarding your turn as being over if you have that up. So the last card here, we have the Tiger Stripe Shuko. Is going to be your arms here. So this is the new card from Uprising. Obviously, it is only a ninja card, so you are allowed to use it in Katsu. It does block for 2, and that's the main reason we're using it here. It does actually become useful because it does buff Crouching Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, it is Crouching Tiger is tour list based. You do have other tour list based like Salt the Wounds. However, if you're generating multiple Crouching Tigers and you're attacking with one, doing something, and attacking with another one, the second Crouching Tiger is going to be attacking for one, which can be quite relevant if you are grabbing Salt the Wounds and you do hit, or you have Mask of Momentum, because this one attack is attack action, right? So it will be able to proc Mask if
Yep.
if that is a thing. So you could be like doing, you could start with a crouching, generate some more off something, Kadachi, something, or like Kadachi attack and then crouching, and then the second crouching is going to be coming in for one, because the first one came in for zero. So this can be like just as annoying in some kind of some kind of combo lines. That being said, Shuko is mainly there for the 2 armor. So into most decks, you're going to be running at least 2 armor here and then 1 armor off Spring Tunic when you really need it. And so that's the equipment line. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of equipment and 2 Kadachi. So we have 9 total in the main deck of 71, I believe. So we can move on now to,
I guess, the quote unquote main board, as you put it.
So we're going to be starting with the reds first, and then moving our way to yellow and blue. A couple of the main keys here is that you'll want to be aware of which ones are your combo pieces, because those are the ones you're going to be able to actually fetch off Katsu, and the ones that you really, really don't want to block with, because a lot of them just end up being really pivotal for those big combo turns. Otherwise, winning is kind of hard. So that being said, we're going to start with kind of the non-combo, and then we're going to go on to the combo. So the first one is 3 red Soul Beat Strike. Soul Beat Strike 0 for 4. If it hits, game go again. Blocks for 3. As far as your generic goes, it hits kind of that ratio of 0, 4, 3. 0 cost 4 with upside if it hits. Blocks for 3. So in those hands where either you have to block a bunch for some reason, maybe like 5's going off and your hand just doesn't do nearly as much damage, you can block with a bunch of cards and you can keep a Soul Beat Strike and 0 for 4 them. Fairly reasonable. I mean, you're not Briar, you're not getting an embodiment off of it. Briar does that better than Katsu, but again, other decks do other things better than Katsu. So
that's just life.
Soul Beat Strike just one of those. Yeah, Soul Beat Strike just one of those like ideal cards that allows you to threaten going off even more. So you can Kadachi Soul Bead, and you have 2 cards in hand, and they have to like figure: do you have Razor? Are you screwing with them? Mask is on the stack. You can snaps it. So there's a lot of different things you can do with Soul Beat Strike, and you grab blocks off this card, which is kind of what you want to do because this is a very efficient card to do so. We have 2 Take the Tempos. Take the Tempo is an interesting card. We only run 2 just because of like space wise. I don't think running 3 is ever a great option. This card is good, but you don't necessarily want it in every single hand because it is a 1 cost. It does gain go again off snaps. Again, very, very, very useful to keep going, because Take the Tempo has an interesting effect where if you've hit when this hits, if you hit 3 or more times this chain, you banish a top card. If it's an attack action, you can play it until the end of your next turn. So if you're able to snaps this and you have an attack action like a snatch or something like that, real good, because then you can grab it off the top and then you can snatch. And if you don't have an arsenal, you're literally just drawing a card on hit, right? So you can push even more tempo because you're taking the tempo, but you're also keeping the tempo if you can draw something like that, right?
Yeah, and so, even as a finisher without your Snapdragons, it's actually really good because you put a card into your next turn, right? So as a finisher, it's quite a good card too.
Yeah, I also do like the fact that you have Kadachis in this deck, right? So hitting 3 times is pretty reasonable. You have Kadachi, right? It was a little bit more difficult in 5 because of the Ember Blade was only 1 hit, so you really had to get the Phoenix Flame going. I think it's a little bit worse in 5 compared to Katsu, and so I really do like it. It does block for 3, and it is pretty reasonable as your last card if you use your Tunic counter. It's a 1 for 5.
Right.
Pretty reasonable. So that's the second kind of generic red. As I mentioned before, we have 3 Inline Strikes. Inline Strike is just like an overall great card in most aggro decks, I would say, that already have like kind of weapons attached to them. You're thinking like Briar, Fi, Katsu, those kinds of decks really, really make good use out of the draw, or the go again, or out of the +2. Not as common in decks like, maybe Lexi or Azalea. It's actually fine in Azalea, but where the archetypes might be more like you really want class cards or arrows or some like specific attack to get a bunch of bonuses. But if you just need nice, good generic filler, this card costs 0. It costs another card out of your hand.
Yeah.
It costs another card out of your hand no matter what the pitch is. It does block for 3, and it comes in very, very flexible. +2, draw a card, go again. all are very good at any given point. And this deck does a very good job with it because it runs Snapdragon Scalers. It also runs another card that does actually do really good work with this too, which I'll mention in a second. One of those other cards is Razor Reflex. We are running 3 Razor Reflex. I do win games of Kodachi Razor. It does happen.
It's a real
it
threat late game.
Yeah, it is a
Real
con.
threat.
Like, how much do you want to block? Yeah, blocking ones, people will be like, oh, you have 1 Razor left in deck, and you're at like whatever. They will respect your Razors more. And the go again this gives cards on the hit is also very, very pivotal for things like E-Strike, Take the Tempo, Soul Bead if they did full block it again. Right. It doubles up, but still it lets you hit and off things like Mask, right? You really do want to be combining Razor with some kind of on hit like Mask, or Take the Tempo, or for E-Strike if you choose draw a card kind of thing and you still have snaps up. Razor's amazing because you're just like, you have an open way of giving go again, and now they don't necessarily know you have Razor, right? Especially if your Tunic is up, they were like, your Razor for the entire game. Like it's a little bit difficult for them to play around it. So I really do like that ability to have with E-Strike and other cards in this deck as far as on hits go. So let's put this kind of stuff away. The next card we have is Ancestral Empowerment. So we run 3 Ancestral Empowerment. Not a card we see in a lot of Phi decks, but it is a card we bring in Katsu because target ninja attack gains +1 is pretty reasonable considering we do run a lot of ninja cards. Other than E-Strike, everything else is, Soul Beat Strike, Take the Tempo. These are all ninja cards. It doesn't have to be a combo card to give it +1. Ancestral replaces itself because you draw a card and you get the +1. And the +1 is really, really useful because the on hits are very powerful in this deck. I'll be talking about some of the combo cards in a second here, but don't play it on Snatch. I think I remember seeing one of the casts.
There was that, yeah. A small
they were like
up,
roasting the cast.
It happens.
Yeah, they were tired. They were tired. I'm not blaming that, but I'm like, for other people, remember, it happens to a lot more people than casters. It happens to regular people in tournaments.
A lot more so, probably.
Oh, 100%. So that is like reasonable. So Snatch and E-Strike are the 2 cards in this deck you cannot Ancestral Empowerment. I mean, Salt the Wound also, but the big red cards are going to be E-Strike and Snatch. And yeah, it replaces, it lands the on hit, and that is the key point of going even wider, are landing your on hit. So Ancestral Empowerment, really, really good for that. Just kind of mentioned it. We have this Snatch, a red Snatch, 3 red Snatch. So this is one of your 2 blocks. You don't have that many 2 blocks in the deck, actually. Well, you have some, but like as far as your attack actions, you don't have a ton of 2-block attack actions, but this is one of them. That's because the upside of drawing a card is just worth it, right? 0 for 4, you're running Razor, you're running even bigger than that. It's just really good 1-card hand, really good with snaps and Razor, and it just allows you to go even further, right? What I love to do is, Kodachi Snatch with a Mask, and then they're just kind of like, well, if you don't respect it, you might draw 2, which is real good, right? So it's just one of those like really threatening cards that allows you to break open the game and do some fair things. The next card we have here is, I guess we said non-combo cards here, so it's going to be even bigger than that. I know people probably forgot about this card.
Oh, I never forget about this card.
Yeah, I know you never forget about this card. So even bigger than that, it's an interesting card from Everfest. I believe this was Rudy's spoiler, if I recall correctly. So this card is interesting for some people that probably don't know what this does here. It's the red one. It's a 0 cost. When you play it, only if you've dealt damage. So the ideal time to do that is like when you've hit with a Kodachi before you hit with a second Kodachi, for instance. That's generally when you're going to want to be doing it. So the red one is op 3. You reveal the top card of your deck. If it has a power greater than the amount of damage you've dealt. So if you've only dealt 1 damage, it just has to do 2 or more, which every attack action in your deck that you're running does 2 or more. So that's pretty useful, actually. Even your blues are doing 2. You create a Quicken and draw a card. So essentially, you opt 3, you find something, reveal it. Base power is greater. You get to draw it and play it, and you get the Quicken, right? The best cards to hit off this are Snatch and E-Strike. Why? Because those are the cards that directly have draw effects that you don't have initial go again without some kind of cost, right?
So pairs really well with the Quicken token.
Really, really well with the Quicken token, and you can opt too, so you can sculpt your next hand a little bit because you can still put one on top and to get the reveal, get the Quicken, draw it, and you still have those 2 cards for next turn. Or if you're threatening more draw hits, you could guarantee a hit off the top, right? So the fact is like your opponent doesn't know if you're just putting like maybe a blue in an attack. which is like pretty reasonable if you want a blue Kadachi Kadachi, or they don't know if you're like actually stacking them correctly for more on hit like wide effects. So they might overblock, or they might like really not want you to block that next card that you're doing on quicken here. So that is all of the non-combo related attack actions. So let's put those away for now. Reds are over half the deck, so that's why we're still on reds. The next card here is 100 Wins. 100 Wins is a byproduct of the fact that I don't think Dynasty gave enough help to this combo line. It's very difficult in Katsu to only focus on one combo line. Even the Mugenshi line with Surging Strike and Whelming Gust Wave usually has like a bunch of other generics, even maybe leg tap and stuff like that. So I experimented with a bunch of different options. Torrent line, leg tap line, surging line. And the issue is that they diluted crouching line a little bit too much for my liking, compared to the fact that it's really, really hard to get off both combo lines consistently in any reasonable amount, and your damage potential just isn't nearly enough to warrant doing something like that. So 100 Wins was kind of the obvious option to the point that you really don't need a lot of help for this, right? So 100 Wins, the combo is literally just more 100 Wins.
Yeah.
So you play 100 Wins, 0 for 3. It is combo, so you can search. So if you hit with 100 Wins, you can use Katsu and grab another 100 Wins. And that 100 Wins is going to come in for 4 go again. It allows you to cycle, and then we play Winds of Eternity in blue, which allows you to like get any 100 Wins you've played back into your deck. So it allows you to have more fodder for Katsu's ability, right? Because that's definitely on the later stages when you use a lot of your reds and have a bunch of blues. That is something that's very, very reasonable. So 100 Wins, 0 for 3 go again. Very, very nice. The next combo card we have is going to be of the actual Crouching Tiger line. So we're actually starting as the Crouching Tiger stuff.
Nice.
Flex Claws. Flex Claws is the rare. We run the reds, 3 reds. We're a little on the awkward side. I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
Three Flex Claws. So it's a 1 for 4. This is leg tap with upside. This is the leg tap of the line, right? So it's a 1 for 4. If it hits, create a Crouching Tiger in your banish zone. You can play it this turn. So it's literally leg tap with upside.
Yep.
Dust Runner Outlaw without upside. Keep in mind this is a rare. That is why it has the upside. Whereas those other 2 cards I mentioned are commons. You can tell with the game design here is not. Yeah, it's not going to be a common. So that would be a little bit on the broken side for a common. So. That being said, it is very pivotal because getting more Crouching Tigers helps you enable the rest of your combo cards. So very, very good. You really like this hitting because getting another Crouching Tiger is essentially getting a Phoenix Flame. You just don't get it in hand. That's kind of the only bad thing is you can't like get one in hand and then like banish it to Ardivore. Right. That would be very, very nice, but you cannot do that.
Right.
So next card we have here. 3 Pouncing Chi. Pouncing Chi is a 0 for 4. So this one, 0 for 3. It is the common. So this is 0 for 3 in a red. It does block 3, which is actually very nice, in my opinion. 0 for 3. It doesn't initially have go again, but the combo is if Crouching Tower was the last attack in the chain, this thing gains +1 and go again. So it turns into a 0 for 4 with go again. It blocks 3. Very, very nice. Getting Crouching Tigers. Your Crouching Tiger generation engine is going to make or break like the over 20 damage turns. Like the 20 plus damage turns are going to be on very heavy Crouching Tiger turns. That being said, Pouncing Chi is one of those cards you have to be cognizant of. You can grab it with Katsu because it's a combo card. Generally you want to if you don't already have any. It does come in for 4 at least. If you have Ardivore, it comes in for 5. Very, very nice. And that is another important piece of your engine here. So with those then we have, let's do the Predatory Streak first. We're running Predatory Streak. These are the promo ones.
Nice, full arts or extended arts.
These are the full art. These are the extended arts. Full art, extended art, whatever.
Same thing.
So these are the red ones. These are your main engine for getting Crouching Tigers, right? So these are the ones that create 3 Crouching Tigers in your banish zone. You can play them this turn. Go again. These are what you're going to be waiting for to combo with your Roaring of the Tiger and with your other combo cards to actually allow you to go wide enough to trigger Mask multiple times. By multiple, I don't mean drawing multiple times. I mean if they block the 3rd attack, you can attack the 6th time and they have to block that. Right. Someone's going to be like in the comments. They're going to be like, you can't trigger
it twice. Yeah.
I know, I'm aware, but you want to threaten it more than once. That's the key here. and that is why we're running the reds. We also run the yellows. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain why those colors once I get to the yellows, but this is your main engine for getting them. So Predatory Streak, Flex Claws gives you 1 on hit, and then we have Tiger Swipe.
The
This is
majestic,
the
I believe.
Majestic,
Yeah.
one of them. The other one was a blue.
Right.
But this is Tiger Swipe. So this is the 0 for 2, but the combo gives it +2. The combo, again, everything leads out of Crouching Tiger. So the combo is very similar to 100 wins, where
Yeah.
100 wins goes off 100 wins.
It's
Wins of
very
Eternity also
flexible.
goes off 100 wins.
You can
Yeah.
like sprinkle crouching tigers here and there between your big attacks, right? To kind of get these
And,
combos multiple
and you
times.
have to. And
Yeah.
that's the key with why Katsu is more difficult than Fi, because you actually do have to
Like order
play your Crouching
things.
Tigers. Yeah, you have to play them in the right thing. I've seen so many times on some early in like the deck's creation where you like Crouching Tiger and you pouncing Chi and then you Tiger Swipe or you pouncing Chi again,
Right.
not realizing that you just
It's
had
like
to play
I
one.
broke the
Not
combo line.
Yeah, you literally you're not doing your combo line because
Yeah.
it's not an attack right before. I know some good ninja players who have done that versus me. I'm not going to name any names
Uh-huh.
before, but you have to be able to sequence your Crouching Tigers in between and really be able to take advantage of those buffs here. So a game's
Yeah.
+2, go again. But the most important thing is when this hits, create X Crouching Tigers in your Banish Zone, where X is the number of Crouching Tigers you control. You may play them this turn. So this is in the Banish Zone. Again, you don't get it to your hand. It is in the Banish Zone. But this can come in, like, assuming they don't block. They will block, but buffing this card is a big priority. Ancestral buffs this, Art of War buffs this, Razor buffs this. You have a lot of buffs that can target this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the things that can do multiplicative damage. Because let's say you Razor this, they block for 4 and you Razor, you get 3. You have any buff the Crouching Tiger gives +1. That Razor is now a +6. Because now you're going to be crouching
Right.
for 1/1/1. If you have Roar out, it's going to be 2/2/2. If you have Art of War up, it's going to be 2/2/2. If you have both up, 3/3/3.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So it multiplies every buff by another one, essentially. So however much you buff this over the top, unless they're overblocking, very, very good. And that's why we're running things like Ancestral and Triple Razor. And of course the Art of Wars, right? So this is going to be the main thing that breaks your combo line open. It is also searchable by Katsu. And so that's kind of the keys that you want to remember here. But it is important to note that Katsu is the first attack that hits. So if you don't grab something the first time, you can't hit something. Yeah. It's not Mask of the Pouncing Link. Mask of the Pouncing Links is anytime you hit.
Right.
Katsu is the first time you hit. People are definitely going to forget that because Fi doesn't care about any of that.
Yep.
So those are the reds. Well, the more core reds that you're going to be running here. I guess we'll start with the yellows. So in the yellows, I'll get the blues. I'll put that aside for now. Not as many yellows, obviously. This is, this is a very aggressive deck here. So we do have the 100 wins of the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of idea. 0 for 2 would go again. It will buff if it hits, it will buff. You can use the yellow and then grab a red. So you can like discard a blue, grab a red, and that red 100 wins comes in for 4 go again. Pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So the yellow is quite good. You can also pitch the yellow as a 0 cost to Kadachi. Also quite flexible. So I do like the yellow 0 costs because they are more flexible. The next card here that I want to push out is Salt the Wound. And this is going to be your main mask target. And that is because you hit, if you create enough Crouching Tigers and you hit with enough Crouching Tigers, you're going to be doing some hidden dragon damage on the Salt the Wound. So it is very important to, if you are running Mask the Pouncing Links, be cognizant of when is the timing to get the maximum damage off. I would say if like you hit 4 or 5 times, that's good enough, really. This does proc Shuko, obviously. So if you have the Shuko, it is 2 base, so we'll get +1 off that also. 100 wins for that matter also. But the main point is you want to maximize that Salt the Wound. You can Snapdragon to Salt if you want. Like those combos you can do with Fi, you can also do with Katsu. You just have less targets. So that's Salt the Wound. Art of War I mentioned a couple times, so I'll just bring it up here. We have 3 Art of Wars. Amazing card. You run Tunic. You run a bunch of attack actions. You don't need all your attack actions here. So turning the Tunic counter Art of War into 2 cards. Net 1 card, +1/+1. That being said, you don't always +1/+1. There are times where Go Again is fine, especially if you have like a bunch of snatches and like E-Strike
Yeah,
and something like
the
that.
non-combo
Uh,
parts of the deck, pretty much.
yeah, you do have 3 Artivores. You don't need to like combo them out 3 times to win the game necessarily. And if you're getting like Artivore early and you have a good enough hand that can, generate, because Artivore is really, really good even on mass turns, right? If you're running massive momentum, that is, because this is still a +1. So you can still like +1/+1 Go Again and then hit off the mask, draw a card anyways, and then you don't necessarily need the double card because you could be drawing 1 minimum
Right.
and then drawing a card off like E-Strike or something like that off the next one, or Snatch or whatever, right? So you don't always need to +1/+1. The +1/+1 is mainly for like your roar turns. But Go Again is something I've seen. Or you can +1/+1 and Go Again and not draw cards, depending if you have enough. If you don't really need anything, right? If you have like Art of War from the arsenal and your 4-card hand is fine, and then
Right.
you have your tunic counter, so you don't need to actually pitch to use it, or you have enough blue pitch, that's also reasonable. But less scenarios, right? So it really depends. It's a very, very flexible card here. Last yellow I'll do in this cycle here is the yellow Predatory Streak. We don't run the blues because this card only blocks for 2, and I think one Crouching Tiger is not enough of a payoff to running a 2-block in blue. That is the only reason I don't run the blues. I've never been happy with running the blues. You cannot discard the blues for Artivore. You can banish it for. You can discard it for Katsu.
Right? Yeah.
No. Banish. I mean, you can't banish for Artivore. Banish to draw 2.
Oh, right. Okay.
And you can discard it for Katsu. It is a blue 0, but you can run it like this deck runs blue 0 block for 3s that do other stuff like do damage. Whereas the one Crouching Tiger in your banish, it's not gunning it. It's not it. And that's kind of where I wish this deck had more ways of generating Crouching Tigers right now. There's only a couple. There's only 9 cards. I'm going to go over the Roar of the Tiger in a second. So after that, there'll be 9 cards plus the Flex Clause. So this is Roar of the Tiger. So I have, this is giving me a proxy for now. The other one is coming. I didn't buy it.
It's on its way.
Yep. So Roar of the Tiger is an interesting card because it really makes the deck tick. It is a good card. It is not a broken card. And what I mean by that is that a yellow 0 cost is nice, very flexible, blocks for 3. You're really not going to want to be blocking with this card all too often here. Pitching it is reasonable to get the Kadachi if you're not really ready for that combo step and it's a slower game that you might need it later to burst out a turn to really like hammer more like blocking decks, for instance. But what it does, it creates a Crouching Tiger in your hand. That's a big distinction because you're able to discard it for Katsu. You're able to banish it for Art of War. Able to banish it for Art of War. I'm going to repeat that a couple times. Very, very good. Obviously, Crouching Tigers don't pitch, whereas like Fi getting Phoenix Flame or whatever, like Phoenix Flame can pitch, Phoenix Flame can be played. It's just better. But then again, you don't want to banish Phoenix Flame. So like getting this to banish to draw 2, very good, right? And so that being said, it does give your Crouching Tigers, you control this turn +1, so you can break the chain if you want. That's totally fine. You can like do something, do whatever. And let's say you have another Predatory Streak or whatever, you can play the Predatory Streak. The Roar of the Tiger will still gain +1 to the Crouching Tigers. So it means like you drew with Mask already and you don't really care that much about the chain. I think it's also the fact that Salt the Wounds is just also it's also just cares about this chain too. So assuming you already got Salt the Wound off kind of thing. But generally you want to keep the chain open with Katsu. It matters a lot more than Fi. So Roar of the Tiger is kind of the... It can go for anywhere from like 3 damage off a Predatory Streak, because Predatory Streak gives you 3 Crouching Tigers. And that's kind of like the absolute bare minimum, right? I guess the Shuko will give it one of them +1 probably, right? So it's probably about 4 damage. That being said, you've used 2 cards to do 4 damage. Seems real mid. So that is kind of why I don't think this card is super broken. The floor is just not that high. Combining with this with Art of War is super good, or combining this just with more Crouching Tigers, and then being able to get the combo pieces like Pouncing Chi to 0 for 4, 0 for 4. And really, really what brings this card together is the Tiger Swipe, right? You need to combine these 2 cards together to actually get like good value out of the deck, because the minute you hit with Roar of the Tiger, you can Katsu something and grab Tiger Swipe if you don't already have it. Grabbing 2 Tiger Swipes is even better. If you can grab 2 Tiger Swipes, that's more ideal because they will definitely block the first one, but not necessarily have enough to block the second one. So That's also something to keep in mind. These two cards work really, really well together, and they're necessary to have together, either through Katsu or just drawing in your hand. Those are the yellows. We're on to the blues here. Not too many blues. We have 3 Snatch.
Oh.
Snatch is a very, very good efficient card. And by a good efficient card, I mean that it is a 1-card draw, comes in for 2, so it requires a card or you get the value because it replaces itself. I like cards that replace itself, either innately or provide an on hit that make you take a card. So it's gonna be a 1-for-1. Either you get a card or you take one of their cards, but it's a 1-for-1 regardless, right? Very good into like even aggro decks that really don't want to block you out. Snatch real annoying because it lets you keep a little bit of that tempo. And it is a card that you can snaps. Blue Snatch, but Shuko affects it. Art of War. If you have Shuko Art of War, this is a 4/4. This is just a red Snatch at that point, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
it
very
is
good target for your Razor Reflex as well, right?
very good target for the Razor Reflex. You like a Blue Snatch on a mask, and you're like, oh, you want to give me a card?
Yeah. Razor to
I'll say
5.
you react. You react and then you cry, right? So this is a sideboard card. Let me take that out. This is also a sideboard card. Take that out. Then we have 3 Winds of Eternity. So this is the one that is the combo ender for 100 wins.
Yep.
So if 100 wins was the last attack combo chain, Winds of Eternity gets +2. So it goes from a 2 to a 4. And then when this hits, shuffle all cards named 100 wins you own on the combat chain into your deck. So that means if the larger your chain is with 100 wins, the better this becomes because you can make this at least 4. If it's Shuko, it's 5 because it's base 2 also. So if you have a yellow somewhere in there, right, it'll be your second 2 or base less, 2 base or less. Sorry, yep. And it will be buffed by wins. Sorry, buffed by Shuko and go to 5. Shit, I got my brain. I got my brain screwed on tight here. So
too many combo
it's
lines.
Quite good.
It's all the wiring.
Yeah, it is. It is a 3-block. It is a blue. It is a 0 cost. It kind of does literally everything you want it to do.
Yeah.
So
even as a vanilla card, it's fine. Even without text, it's fine.
Even without text, it's fine here. So we have 3 Soul Beat Strike blue. Very similar to the red one here. It is a 0 cost 3-block blue, so it procs the Kadachis. Procs by gives it go again. Mm-hmm. It does come in for 2, so it's real annoying to block. And if they don't block it, it gains go again. So it's one of those like really annoying things at 2 to block.
Yep.
And again, if you Art of War Shuko, it's a 4. So it's just like a really obvious generic card that like helps with the overall feel of the deck. Unfortunately, that's kind of where the good
blues ends.
Yeah, because we have Find Center here, which is literally just a filler card. We don't run Crane Dance. You can also run Lord of Wind if you want. We don't run Bugenshi Line. But the 3-block 0 cost blue is kind of really what we're looking for, right? So these are the main blues of the deck. So we are running 12 blues, which for Katsu is fairly reasonable because you're going to want so that's like what?
It's 12 out of 1 out of a per hand, I guess.
1 out of 5. Yeah, no, it's
close.
1/5. So,
yeah, it's a 5th.
Yeah, it's gonna be. It's 1/5. So you're not always gonna get a blue, but you don't always need a blue. You do have a lot of yellows, and a lot of yellows are 0 costs. So getting a yellow Kadachi, and then a lot of your cards are 0 costs. So yellow Kadachi, E-strike with whatever, snatch. Like it's built to have like that ability. You do have Tunic to kind of move the dial on that too. Those are your main blues. We have a very small sideboard. By small, I mean it's only 3, 6, 7, 8 cards.
Okay.
And the sideboard is interesting. So that's kind of like the main board you'll use, and then you can kind of interchange as you want. We have 3 Sync Blows. So when you're turning into more of a mid-range deck, for sure, Sync Blow quite good, specifically against like Guardian and such. Big Sync Below to be able to like block for 3 and then sync and then like block with a piece of armor to get around like some crush effect. It also allows you to like block with Shuko and sync, blocking a Spinal Crush, for instance. So that would only do 3 damage, assuming they don't pummel it, right? Do 3 damage and still let you go off, and you only used 1 card in hand, and you still have 4 card hands. Pretty good. We have that all you got. We have 3 of them. It is a yellow 0 cost, so it does allow you Kadachi, if nothing else. This is mainly for Fi. The mirror also, you can use it. I don't know. I think the mirror might just be a race. But that all you got is mainly for Fi. So there's a ton of Fi. That's kind of what the deck is more. Again, change it to your meta. Like if there's a whole shit ton of Guardians, these might be way better used than any other. Even Fate for Scenes would be better than this.
Right.
In that kind of meta. That being said, mainly for Fi because this does block something like a Phoenix Flame, and it does allow you to draw a card at the end, so you're coming back with a little bit of tempo, right? So those are that. We have a blue Flusterfist just to get another blue in the deck, and we have a blue Energy Potion.
Okay.
A blue, it's only comes in blue.
Yeah, red
but
energy potion when create 4
yeah,
resources.
yeah. So we have 2 extra blues, mainly for the ice decks, and mainly for because just to the point where ice really hurts this deck a lot.
Yeah, if you're
And
hitting
so
with
being
5
able
crouching
to,
tigers,
yeah,
Channel
so
Lake,
you
oof.
yeah, no, then you're just a little on the bone side. You can't Crouching Tiger over a channel turn, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of having that extra 2 resources. You could possibly run 2 Epots. Really depends on what you want to take out of the deck here, but these are for when you need more blues, right? So
Yeah.
Flusterfist and Epot, you play the Epot and get the 2 resources. That is that. So this deck is considered a more aggressive deck. I wouldn't say it's like a pure aggro deck, and to the point where it is a combo deck. However, it is very flexible, so you don't always look for the same line over and over again to
Right.
get your point across. You do have the lines that like you're looking for. Roar the Tiger Swipe,
Mm-hmm.
and you do have like 100 wins as like a backup line. That being said,
Yeah.
the deck kind of does also excel a little bit in the mid-range capacity because it does have a lot of 3 blocks, and it does have some pretty efficient turns like pitch, Kadachi E strike, Kadachi Snatch. Even bigger than that, does play a pretty nice role in being able to embiggen your turn and make it even
And
wider.
big in your turn.
Embiggen your turn, enlarge it, engross it,
Even wider
uh,
than that.
even wider than that, even taller than that. Okay,
Yep.
anyways, that is kind of the idea. I guess we could roll into a bit about the matchups. The matchups is
Yep.
very
We can talk more kind of macroscopically about it too, right?
macroscopically. I love it.
Yeah, we
But
can talk more about like what type of deck you would play certain cards into, I guess, or as you
yeah
see fit. Whatever experience you have, you can feel free to shed light on it.
yeah. So the deck really into like other mid-range decks. I'm gonna break it down into like other like aggro decks,
Mm-hmm.
other mid-range decks, and then control
Like
decks.
control, yeah.
Yeah, I think breaking it down hero by hero is a little bit disingenuous. It's because it's not something
Right,
that changes all too much between the different heroes, like
right.
other more tuned decks
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, that being said, the main priority here is still to be aggressive and get damage across, with a nice backup end game of having Kadachis available to you to poke, right? That being said, against the aggro deck, specifically Fi is a tricky one. You can run Blazing Your whatever.
Yoroi? I don't know how
Yeah,
to pronounce that.
I think it might be in the list. I just didn't bring it out. That might be the card I'm missing because I think I'm missing a card. But
Right.
that being said, Blazing Yori is like the other card that you can bring up strictly for Fi because you're not gonna
Strictly for
get
like lava
that high.
burst, I guess.
It's literally countering Lava Burst, Salt the Wound, stuff like that when
Mm-hmm.
you're running like that kind of thing. The issue is if you run Blazing Yori, you don't get the one-off
The
blossom and you
tunic.
don't get the tunic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're spending a card just to stop their strategy, but the problem is their strategy is so good in that damage wins the games, right? So that being said, I think that into more aggressive decks, you really want to be cognizant of what the meta is looking at. Right now, Fi is just like aggro combo, so Blazon might be more realistic. The main thing you want to consider here is which mask do you want to run. Personally, in my experience, I think Mask of Momentum is good,
Okay,
because you get because it really depends on the density of the cards that will get you more damage than a Pouncing Lynx. Because a Pouncing Lynx is worth about in this deck, it's only Salt the Wound, right? So in this deck, it could be worth 4, 5, 6, like into fives. Like if they're not blocking, that's fine. If you get the Crouching Tiger line early, if you don't, you just lose, right? You're just
yeah.
gonna end up blocking. Whereas the Mask of Momentum, you will get value from turn 1, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key, right? You'll always get that value and then make them either block with a card or you let them draw a card. You have some really good draws in this deck, right? So it is, in my opinion, going to get you more damage on average. That being said, running Blossom and Mask is kind of the more of the strategy for decks that block you. It's not really the strategy that I personally like with Katsu. Usually running Mask, maybe as Fi, you probably run like Lynx is just worth minimum 6 damage from the Shuko Lava Burst. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
Because you don't have Kadachi and you only have Emberblade, there's a lot of turns where like his Mask as momentum is just not going to be as useful, right? Whereas with Katsu is going to be very useful a lot because Kadachi, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like aggro, Fi being the main one. Briar, very, very kind of similar idea with Briar. Briar has the ability to block you out more, but racing Briar is a little bit awkward just because of the embodiments, right? Being able to like 0 for 4 and then create an Earth embodiment and block for 3 or 4 on your non-attacks. Like
Yeah.
they're running this round's on me. Oh, this round's on me, real bad. Real bad for you. Good card, very good card in Katsu.
Yeah.
Because it's all attacks, right? I believe it's all attacks.
I believe so.
Yeah. Minus one. Yeah. So
It
those
might block
Kadachis
too. Yeah.
Yeah, those Kadachis do a whole lot of nothing. Your turn's kind of awkward as far as getting your chain up, right? So that is a matchup where I think you need to like take it as it goes. Like I don't think any of these none of these sideboard options are like particularly tantalizing against Briar. That all you got's okay into Rosetta. I think you just run the null one, and then you just null one as your boots, and then you can just attack up with Mask of Momentum. That being said, I think it's a matter of preference. If you play the deck and you prefer like always having access to Salta Wounds off Mask of the Pouncing Links, pretty reasonable. Again, personal preference. So you might want to play the deck and figure out that like, oh, you made a bunch of changes, and that you prefer Mask more often than not into aggro. Then that's kind of up to you. Then when you're looking at, I miss any like crazy ass aggro decks?
I think those are pretty much the only ones. Yeah. Viscera is not an aggro deck anymore, or wasn't really ever an aggro deck.
It can be an aggressive deck.
Yeah.
I think like Lexi can kind of fall into that, but I think the problem, you struggle into Lexi, just because ice. If they throw down Red Arctic Incarceration and they just hit you with like Chilling Ice Vein,
it turns over.
It's not over per se, but like you're gonna probably want to run things like Sink Below. The issue is that anyone who has a bunch of on hits that just like really terrorize your turn, you're gonna want to use the Sink Belows. Probably run the E-Pot also
the
in that
extra
matchup.
Blues for the ice.
Yeah, exactly. So those become a lot easier, and then the cards you're gonna want to take out are things like Yellow 100 Wins, right? The cards that are just kind of like filler cards, so like Yellow 100 Wins, because you still have Red 100 Wins, because you can always search. You can red into red kind of thing. You don't necessarily need the yellows.
Yeah.
Those are like kind of the cards you're going to be wanting to cut in those matchups. The issue is that because the deck is so thin, it is really difficult. Like even bigger than that can be a cut in some of those matchups. But there really isn't that much that you can risk cutting. Take the Temple Red is another one you can consider cutting. It's pretty lean. Like the deck's only 61, 62 cards on average, so you're cutting and adding about 6 total cards at any given time if you are. So that's kind of Lexi in a nutshell. It's going to be a bit of a struggle. If they're on Lightning, then it really, I think you might just want to race that down, but I'm not really sure. I haven't played the Lightning Lexi. I just know into the Ice Lexi, it's going to be rough because they're ice, for that matter.
Okay, how about the I guess that's it for aggro, I guess, right?
For like more aggressive decks,
they
just want to attack and don't want to block. Those are like the 3 decks. Even though Briar is like can block if she wants, right?
So I guess
we can move on to I guess the Guardians first. I guess Bravo, and then like aggressive Oldhim is also mid range. This deck's bad versus Oldhim. Deck real bad versus Oldhim. It's the combination of the fact that they have a card called Stalagmite that just gives you a Frostbite out of nowhere. This deck doesn't have that many. Like you can add the blues. And if you're seeing a bunch of Oldhims, you might want to add take out the dial you got and just add a shit ton of blues just to play the longer game and play more mid range style. You cannot like super burst this down. You win versus Oldhim by them not having a lot of ice and running Mask of the Pouncing Links to be able to get a 5-card hand to shit on them, right? That is the only way to do it with like Art of War, Roar, get those 20 plus damage turns out. And if you do that enough, the game is winnable. It's just unfavored. Just because they have Channel Lake, they can get. Luckily, Hypothermia doesn't hurt you as much as it hurts something like a Briar.
Right.
Because a lot of your cards do have natural go again, but your combo cards do not. So.
Yeah, it's true.
Actually, but your 100 wins have natural go again. Your combo cards don't. Unfortunately,
Soul Beat Strike doesn't, unfortunately.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No, they does not. But the Crouching Tiger does have natural go again. So if you can make a big Crouching Tiger turn, it does just have go again. It doesn't have to gain go again.
Right.
So Hypothermia does still hurt, just not as much as could, I guess. So that's Oldhim. Bravo is tough only because you're not really running like that many. So if you have a bunch of Bravos, you might consider running Reinforced Align. So this slot here is what I'm kind of referring to, these 3 Vadal you got. This is specifically for like 5, it was just a menace. And that's kind of why that all you got came into the deck. That is a very flexible spot. To that end, you can replace it with any of these cards I'm kind of mentioning, right? So Reinforced Align, real good card into Bravo because you're able to get around that Dominate because it just buffs your attack. And so like a 3 and then a 7 from hand. Or even, other combos you really have to block and you're running Sinks also, right? So then you have 6 4 blocks. You have enough 3 blocks that like Kadachi Chip is something that you can do. It's an uphill battle, I'll tell you that. It's not as hard as Oldhim because no ice.
Yep.
No ice Bravo. Well, until the Bravo star of the whatever comes out of V2 and then has ice for all I know. So Dory's interesting. Dory has a lot of armor. It's going to be really, really hard to burst her out. However, she doesn't come in as aggressively, and you do block decently well. You are going to be running your Sinks just for like additional kind of support as far as the swords go, but you do pump out a lot of damage. And then if Dory doesn't block or give you the armor kind of early, she is going to take a lot more damage later on from like your extended combo pieces. And it's kind of hard for her to block a lot of these Crouching Tigers and stuff like that because she doesn't have that many tools. She's very good with like shunts and she's able to block very tall attacks, but you go very wide. So it's a bit interesting in the game. The new Dory, I only have like a little bit of practice in the new Dory with the Iron Song. What's it called? Iron Song.
Pride,
I think.
Yeah.
Iron Song Pride, I believe. Dory is scary for Katsu just because of that armor, but in my experience, I think the momentum has been more reasonable to threaten the extra on hit after the Kadachis. The issue with Lynx in the matchup, the Lynx combo line with Blossom of Spring, is that early in the game, which is when you want to run the Blossom of Spring Lynx combo, they just block up. That's really more like if into the aggressive decks, if you want to combo them out and race them, that is why you have the Blossom Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So I would probably look to more of a mid-rangey kind of style into Dory, run the mask, try to poke them out, and try to get like very value-efficient turns. And that kind of leads into Rhinar. Very similar to Rhinar. Rhinar has a ton of 3 blocks, not as much armor. And I think that the thing with Rhinar, again, you probably also want the Sink Belows to not just die. Sink Below real good. To have in the arsenal, to have like two blocking cards in case they like Intimidate 3 you and you want like 1 card in your arsenal, so you can have Sink in the arsenal and be able to block out barraging or block out the extra barraging damage. But I think you want to take a more aggressive stance. Rhinar, historically speaking, is worse into the more aggressive decks. And that is the stance you want to take as Katsu. So you're going to probably be running the maximum combo potential. Blossom, Pouncing Lynx, the whole kit here, and try to burst them down. You don't really care about Intimidates, but if you want to go slower, add the Sinks. Not bad. If not, you do you. These are just kind of the notes that I've gathered from that. What are we missing?
I guess Viscera. We can talk about him.
Just don't get comboed. Viscera is just like a deck that just relies on hitting things off like Mordred combo turns and then working to just like demolish you off really like high end turns. Whereas like you can't really like do too much to stop those turns. Even if you take if you even try to pressure a bunch of damage, he does have a little bit of armor. I haven't played this deck too much into Viserai, to be fair, but I think Viserai's damage potential is quite high. But he's not really necessarily looking to always race you. I think blocking him out is kind of but I think the game plan is kind of keep a little bit of life parity into like a mid range combo, and then wait for your like big breaking combo. I don't think you run Blossom of Spring or anything like that. I think the game's gonna go more than 6 turns.
Yeah, it's more of a dance. Unlike racing against Fi or something, you're taking damage here and there, blocking when you can, and just trying to get to the bottom, I guess, where your big combo is gonna matter.
Yeah, pretty much. Those are really the only matchups I've like played more than like a game into, so I don't really want to talk about like Azalea or Kano or
that's fair.
Icelander.
Yeah,
Icelander is also like quite difficult from what I've seen. Again, the ice factor, like Hypo can shut off your turn, Channel shuts off your turn. Icelander, real awkward matchup. The only things I want to say to end off the video here is this is at the moment in this kind of configuration, this deck needs help. We're doing a deck tech on this deck because it's new and it's fun. And it's very, very fun. When it goes off, you go off. But this is a very... I don't even know if this is tier 2. Maybe this is like at the bottom of tier 2 at the moment. But as far as like the meta, this deck is not going to break into the meta in this current configuration. Other decks either just counter this or just do it better than Katsu. But there is potential here that if there are more cards that are able to generate Crouching Tigers on a consistent basis, you can have really, really, really strong turns. At the moment, I've had to add things like 100 wins and some generics that maybe I shouldn't like have to play to be able to like round out this deck. But like I really don't want to play 600 wins. I just have to, right? Because like Red Scar for a Scar isn't that amazing in the deck. And I don't know. Yeah, so this is definitely a very fun deck. So try it out if you like this kind of combo style.
This does somewhat revitalize Katsu. This is like in no way a downgrade, I think, from the previous version, because that version was, strictly worse than Fi. Here at least we have something that can compete. And it's fun.
You could steal some games. This is just a fun deck. I wouldn't call this like a super competitive deck right now, but this is a very fun deck. And that's about it.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for rounding out the Katsu list that you've been trying out lately on Talishar, I assume. Or in Armories too, maybe. Brought to a few Armories. Maybe not that far.
I love losing Armory games.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, thanks again, Eric, and thanks for watching. If you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We do read the comments. We do like to look through them and, give our opinions as much as we can. And we like being wrong as well. So if you have a differing opinion, if this is like the best deck in your local scene and it's doing really well, feel free to comment that out as well. But with that, wherever you are in the world, thank you for watching. Have a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Bye for now.